Ronald Reagan loved his country, but I think his country loved him even more. And that includes people on both sides of this floor at the time. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
After senators speak about President Reagan on the 100 years after his birth, West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who's there on the Senate floor now, will speak for the first time. Politico writing that Joe Manchin, a Democrat, is wasting no time attacking the Obama administration's energy policies. The senator will use his maiden speech on the Senate floor today to trumpet legislation he's introducing that would prevent the Environmental Protection Agency from revoking Clean Water Act permits that have already been finalized. So we expect that speech by Senator Manchin to happen in about 5 minutes from now at 3 Eastern.
Senator from West Virginia.
Has consent to address the House.
Without objection.
Mr. President, it is my great honor today to speak on the floor for the first time as a United States Senator. I'm truly humbled by this auspicious occasion and the enormous privilege to serve the greatest people in America, the people of West Virginia. West Virginia may be a small state, but our impact on our nation's history and its future is far greater than the size of our geography or our population. West Virginia was born out of the turmoil of the Civil War, founded by patriots who shared a united pursuit for justice and freedom for all. Since this historic beginning, our lands and vast natural resources have helped build this nation. Our people's hard work, sacrifices, and patriotism have helped make our nation stronger and safer. From the mining of the coal that powers our cities to the forging of the steel, we have done and will do the heavy lifting that has built America. But this great responsibility to serve as a United States Senator for West Virginia would never have come about had our state not lost a true giant, our beloved Senator Robert C. Byrd. Senator Byrd was a mentor to me, a great friend to West Virginia, and a tireless advocate for us all. West Virginia would not be the state it is today without the inexhaustible commitment that he made every day. And without Senator Byrd, it's not only a loss for us all, but we all can take comfort that he made not just West Virginia a better state, but he made America a greater nation. While no one will ever be able to fill his shoes, I hope to honor his memory by continuing down the path he blazed, fighting to better the lives of West Virginians and all Americans. I would also like to recognize the unwavering leadership of West Virginia's distinguished senior senator, one of who has left a dynamic mark on history, my dear friend, Senator Jay Rockefeller. He has committed his life to giving outstanding public service to a very grateful state. Throughout my 20 years of public service, I have been fortunate beyond words to have been able to serve the great people of West Virginia. Again and again, I have been inspired by West Virginians' devotion to family, their love of country, their belief in hard work and sacrifice, and above all, their undeniable spirit to weather any storm by coming together. I have seen our state endure the most devastating challenges, horrific flooding, the tragic mining accidents, and I have seen our state in the best of times. But at all times, the spirit of West Virginia has never been broken. It is this spirit of working together and finding common sense solutions to any challenge that inspires me. It is this spirit that also inspired both sets of my grandparents to immigrate to America, one from Italy and the other from Czechoslovakia. My grandparents came here with the same goal shared by countless generations of immigrants, to provide a better quality of life for their families. Through hard work and sacrifice, they did just that. This is what I learned growing up in West Virginia. When things are tough, we don't back down. When we're having trouble paying our bills, we don't think of spending more money. When we face difficult times, we work together to make things better. When faced with a problem, we don't avoid what needs to be done. We try to solve it. This is what West Virginians would call common sense. Now, I was born and raised in Farmington, West Virginia, a small coal mining town. Nothing will teach you common sense like growing up in a town of less than 500 people. I was educated in our public schools and became the first member of my family to graduate from college. I met my partner in life, my wife, Gail, in West Virginia. We raised our 3 children in the state we love, and I have long believed in the importance of public service, beginning with my days supporting a volunteer rescue squad in Marion County and working with the United Way more than 3 decades ago. As for my public life, my first days as a state legislator to my last days as governor, I realize that none of us in this or anybody are simply elected to an office. We are not here for the title. We are here to make a difference. I'm here to work hard and do this job, and I'll work with anyone who offers common sense solutions on how to best move this country forward. Madam President, in my maiden inaugural address as West Virginia's 34th governor, I said that in order for us to be successful, it was going to take the commitment of civic leaders, public employees, business people and laborers, educators, students and parents, lawyers and doctors, veterans, young professionals, senior citizens, and Republicans, Democrats, and independents. At the time, very few thought that such a diverse coalition could ever be forged, let alone actually accomplish something in the process. But we West Virginians put politics aside. We listened to each other, we worked together, and we came together to find common ground and develop common sense solutions. As a result, we changed the direction of our state for the better. We got our financial house in order. We lowered our taxes for both families and businesses. We paid down unfunded liabilities, and we created thousands of new jobs. There was a surplus every year that I was governor. West Virginia became a stronger state and one of the very few fiscally solvent states in this nation, all during the worst recession in generations. We solved the actual problems that were holding our state back. And those problems were not solved with partisan rhetoric and the mentality, if you win, I lose. Not at all. West Virginians came together with a shared vision and a common purpose. And by working together, we found common sense solutions. And in doing so, we made the future we all share better. This common sense model is by no means unique to only West Virginia. I truly believe we can develop common sense solutions to the problems our nation faces. Common sense solutions defined not by party or ideology, but by doing what is right and what makes sense for our state and our country. I am committed to doing just that. Of course, cynics will argue that gridlock is inevitable and that common sense solutions are impossible because the partisan division in Washington is just too great. I say they're wrong. While the legislative reality we face is divided government, it does not mean that we must be divided. In fact, since the day I was sworn in as a U.S. Senator, I have been fortunate to sit and talk with many of my Democratic and Republican colleagues. Every time what I heard was a profound love for this great nation and an unbreakable commitment to leave this country better and stronger for future generations. While disagreements in how we solve our nation's great challenges will occur, they need not divide us. I see these disagreements as an opportunity for us to seek the common ground that will unite us and move our nation forward. And I, Madam President, am committed to working with both sides to doing what is right to address the serious economic and policy challenges we face as a nation, and which are of deep concern to the hardworking people of West Virginia. I heard these concerns loud and clear during our most recent work period. During those 2 weeks in January, I traveled more than 2,100 miles on my Call for Common Sense tour. I held more than 28 events and met with the unemployed, seniors, veterans, small business owners, young professionals, labor leaders, educators, leaders from our coal and energy industry, as well as leaders in manufacturing. I held town hall meetings in Wheeling and Elkins, where West Virginians with diverse concerns came together to share their opinions. Again and again I heard there's serious concerns about the economy and jobs, the need to protect coal and our energy industry, as well as the fears from rising debt and deficits. I heard about what government was doing or not doing to ensure that we keep our promises to our seniors and our veterans. But what I also heard was a lot of common sense ideas about what our country needs to focus on and what we must do to provide a more secure future for our children and grandchildren. Addressing these top concerns, job creation, deficit reduction, energy independence, and keeping our promises to our veterans and our seniors, matter not only to West Virginians and me, but to every one of you and all of America. With respect to job creation, our nation continues to struggle with high unemployment and a great recession that feels too much like a Great Depression for the millions of Americans looking for work. For too long, we have seen America's manufacturing sector disseminated by the cruel irony of rules and regulations that make it easier to create jobs abroad than here in the United States. Madam President, West Virginians are not asking for a handout. We're asking for a work permit. We've seen small business owners, the bedrock of our economy and our job growth, increasingly strangled by paperwork and regulatory obstacles that make doing business more difficult. I believe that to create a thriving economy and jobs, we must lessen the burdens of unnecessary rules and regulations. Bureaucrats should not be able to regulate what has not been legislated. We need to make government work smarter and its agencies operate more efficiently and effectively. We're not asking government to be our provider. We are asking government to be our partner. I truly hope that we in this session of Congress will work together to reform our federal bureaucracy so that we can make sure our government works for us instead of the other way around. As a small business person, I know firsthand that the last thing any small business owner needs is more regulation or paperwork. It is why I was proud to be one of the lead Democrats to work across the aisle to co-sponsor legislation with my friend Senator Mike Johanns to repeal the 1099 provision from our health care reform. I was even more proud to add my voice last night to the many senators from both parties who showed that we can and will work together on compromising reform for health care legislation. It is why I will continue to work with any of my colleagues to ensure that we do everything that we can to help small business, not just by improving health care reform, but also by strengthening the access to the capital and investment that small businesses so desperately need to create jobs. Improving the opportunities for small business and boosting job creation will also depend on making difficult choices to rein in wasteful spending and rising debt. As we learned last week, the fiscal 2012 deficit is projected to be $1.5 trillion. The Congressional Budget Office projects that under current law, our national debt will reach $25 trillion by 2021. Madam President, what I heard from my fellow West Virginians is that we must get our financial house in order. My proud grandfather always told me that crippling debt will lead us to make cowardly decisions. Madam President, America is not a country of cowards. During a recent town hall I held in Wheeling, a young college student worried about getting married and having a family in the near future told me that she was worried because of the debt and fiscal burdens her child would inherit. For me, this young woman's words are a tragic reminder of the consequences that will come from inaction. In America, no one should have to have second thoughts about starting a family because of his or her worries about our nation's out-of-control spending and rising debt. As I've said before, we as a nation can't spend ourselves to prosperity. We must confront our fiscal situation and be willing to make the right investments and the difficult choices. Doing so for West Virginians is just common sense. West Virginians don't go out and spend more money when they face tough financial problems. They cut back and live within their means. And I believe that we all in America must do the same, and especially in Washington. To that end, I believe we must declare a bipartisan war against wasteful spending and begin to take responsible steps to scour our nation's budget for all waste and redundant programs. In the coming weeks, I look forward to working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to develop a common-sense strategy on how to best cut spending and address our rising debt and deficits. And while these steps will require difficult decisions, I believe that if we put partisanship aside and work together, we can have a bipartisan common-sense plan that improves our fiscal future and sets our nation on a new course for fiscal responsibility. But strengthening our economy will also depend on our nation achieving not just independence from debt, but real energy independence. As a senator from a true energy state, the second leading producer of coal with an abundant resources, a net exporter of electricity, I am very proud of the critical role West Virginians play in providing energy to our nation. And I imagine that the lights in this very chamber would be a little dimmer were it not for West Virginia and West Virginia coal. Moving forward, achieving true energy independence demands that we not only start realizing the importance that coal has in achieving this goal, it means we must stop demonizing one resource and start realizing we must develop a comprehensive plan that utilizes all of our domestic resources, coal, natural gas, the development of nuclear, wind, and solar so that we can, once and for all, end our dependence on foreign oil within this generation. If we are going to truly be secure, we must declare our country to be energy independent, and every state in this great nation must do its part. West Virginia is using every ounce of its natural resources, our coal, our abundant supply of natural gas, biomass, wind, hydroelectric, solar, all of which should be used in the most environmentally responsible way. As a country, we must stop buying oil from the countries that promote violence against their own people and the United States. That's just common sense. I am also strongly committed to working with my fellow senators to develop a realistic and responsible clean energy policy for the future that balances the needs of our country and our environment. I believe that we can achieve this common sense balance while protecting the vital role that coal and natural gas and our other resources play in our nation's economy. Defending the critical role that coal in West Virginia plays in our nation's energy production is one reason I submitted today my first piece of legislation, the EPA Fair Play Act of 2011, which will check the power of the Environmental Protection Agency. I believe it is fundamentally wrong for any bureaucratic agency, including the EPA, to regulate what has not been legislated, to have absolute power to change the rules at the end of the game, and to revoke a permit, as the EPA did in southern West Virginia's Spruce Mine, after it was lawfully granted and employees were hired. Giving any agency such absolute power will have a chilling effect on investment and job creation far beyond West Virginia, and I am proud that there is already bipartisan support for this legislation. Madam President, achieving a brighter future for our nation will also depend on us keeping our promises to our seniors and our veterans. West Virginia's seniors and veterans help build and defend this nation, and we have the obligation to them that we must never break. As I traveled the state last month, I heard from seniors at breakfasts, in nursing homes, in courthouses, and at town halls about their Social Security being at risk. I made it clear to them that I will never support going back on our promises. I also heard their concerns about living for 2 years without a COLA increase. And I'm committed to finding a common-sense solution, a recalculation of the COLA formula to make sure it reflects the reality of the cost of living today. To our seniors, Social Security and Medicare are not just government programs. They are promises made by a thankful nation to ensure quality of life well-earned from years of hard work and sacrifice. For our veterans, their sacrifices and patriotism know no bounds. They have answered the call of our state and this nation again and again. They have served with unparalleled honor and distinction. As governor, I was so proud and honored to have been Commander-in-Chief of the West Virginia National Guard, the greatest guard in the nation. Madam President, West Virginia is one of the most patriotic states in the country, and we are proud of the number of veterans and active duty members that have served our military and served honorably and proudly. During this session of Congress, I am strongly committed to working with my colleagues on legislation that will ensure that our veterans and their families have the best care and benefits they deserve. That is why I am so proud, as a co-sponsor to the lead of this bill, Senator Jay Rockefeller's legislation giving the National Guard their rightful place on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Our National Guard and Reserve forces have bravely assumed a major role in our combat missions, and they deserve a seat at the table along with our active duty forces. West Virginia National Guard and Reserve forces are the best in the nation, and as governor, I was proud to be their commander-in-chief. Not only are they an operational force to be reckoned with on the front lines, defending our nation abroad, they are also first on the scene during the disaster here at home. Looking ahead, addressing the issues of job creation, rising debt and deficits, energy independence, keeping our promises to our seniors and our veterans will demand not just common-sense policies, but a renewed bipartisan spirit. No matter how large a divide may seem at times, we must work together to find common grounds to achieve common-sense solutions. I truly believe that Republicans and Democrats and independents can and will work together to chart a new course for this nation. It is why I'm so proud and honored to have been selected to serve on such esteemed committees as the Armed Services Committee, the Energy and Natural Resource Committee, and the Special Commission on Aging. I look forward to working with Senators Levin and McCain, Bingaman and Murkowski, Colin Corker, and all of my committee colleagues to address the wide array of issues and challenges that will come before these important bodies. Whether it is my work on these committees or not, I am committed to working hard and being the best senator I can be for the state that I love. Like all 99 of my colleagues who are here for the right reasons, I will represent my state to the best of my abilities and work to make America stronger and my state proud. I pledge to you that I will not only work with each and every one of my fellow senators to find common sense solutions, I will do what I can to usher in a new bipartisan spirit in the Senate and this Congress. In that spirit, I will strive to always find that common sense bridge that unites our parties and reminds us and the world that we, no matter what state we may represent, share one common and unbreakable bond. We are all Americans. We all share love for this nation, for our families, and for our children, and it is this bond which will unite us in these difficult times and which gives me the hope and optimism that once again we will rise above any challenge we face. Madam President, I yield the floor.
Mr. Akaka.
Madam President,
Senator from West Virginia.
I ask unanimous consent that the order of the quorum call be rescinded.
Without objection.
Madam President, you have just heard a classic Joe Manchin speech. And it truly is. It's full of optimism, strength, common purpose, no problem cannot be solved, the desire for bipartisan cooperation. If anybody can bring our two sides together, surely he can do that. He's aggressive, he's thoughtful, but above all, he's optimistic. Has a positive approach, constructive approach, unafraid of any problem, and thrilled about doing whatever kind of public service he does. We have actually fairly common careers. We both served in the state legislature. He served in both branches. I served in one branch. We were both secretaries of state, and we both ran for governor, and now we're both in the United States Senate. And so I've known the Manchin family for years. I've known Joe Manchin for years. I've always been proud of his work. He's fun. He loves sports. That's very important in life. Very important in life. He loves sports. He's a devoted mountaineer, and sometimes I think he calls the plays for our team. But this is going to be a better Senate because of Joe Manchin, because of his personality. I've watched him in just the couple of months he's been here, couple of weeks, month, two, and he's been all over the floor. It's fun to watch him. Somebody sits down, that side, this side, all of a sudden, Senator Joe Manchin is seated right beside them, grabbing an arm, making a point, establishing a friendship, bonding. That's the way he is with our people. He comes from the very heart of West Virginia, coal mining country, and that's the way he acts. That's the way his father acted. It's the way his family's always acted. They are part and parcel of the blood, beginning, and the struggle of West Virginia. One of the reasons I'm in public service is because West Virginia is always fighting uphill. People don't pay attention to us the way we think they should. They don't pay attention to what our economy has to offer the way they should, and that motivates him. If you're a West Virginian, you just simply have to fight harder. If you're a West Virginia public servant at whatever level, you have to fight harder. And you have to have an optimistic view. You have to believe that things can work. You have to be determined that things can work. And you have to see the course all the way to the end. And that's exactly who Joe Manchin is. So I'm incredibly proud to serve with him. I read his speech before. He said some very nice things about me, all accurate. But because we've been colleagues for so long, I can just tell you, for those of you who don't know him as well as you will, he's a real asset to this body. We are a body which is now in the process of struggling to find out who we are. It's not always a pretty sight, but everybody here takes public life seriously. Senator Manchin has the problem, some would say the opportunity, but not many, the opportunity to have to be reelected again in 2 years. So life will be more complicated for him because that's just the way the election system is worked out. But he is a bright light, and a young, aggressive, bright light with an absolutely marvelous wife who is now a part of us. And I think he has a unique perspective. It's a classic West Virginia perspective, and I look forward that he will make an enormous difference in this body, to our state, and to our country. So I welcome him. I congratulate him on his opening statement. I made an opening statement some years ago. It was actually one of the most boring speeches I ever listened to. But those were the days that you weren't allowed to make a speech until you'd been here for 6 months. And then everybody turned out, all the old guard, like, the senior senator from New York over there, the guys, the gray beards, the wise old men, they turn out. And they all planted themselves around here, and they listened to this incredibly boring speech of mine, which was all about a steel company, because that's what I happened to be working on at the time. And then they stood up afterwards and they said, that's the most, Russell Longstreet said, that's the most brilliant speech I've ever heard. Well, those were the days of a certain kind of protocol. Times are much faster now. We have to react much faster. We don't have time for that. So Senator Manchin made his speech, but he goes from the speech to his work, and there he will simply not stop until we get a better state and a better country. I congratulate him, and I welcome him officially and forever to the Senate.
Madam President.
Madam President.
Sorry. Thank you. Very kind.
Senator from Tennessee.
Thank you, Madam. I thank the Senator from New York. I'll just say I joined the Senator from New York in welcoming another West Virginia governor to the United States Senate. Governor Manchin succeeds a man who's irreplaceable, really, in the United States Senate history, Senator Byrd, but he brings to our Senate the skills of a governor. Governor Rockefeller and I are very partial to those skills. We think the Senate needs more governors. Governors are accustomed to looking for consensus, to making things work, to making things happen. We have a different sort of job here in the legislature, but those qualities are important. They're especially important now when we have such large challenges to face, such as the fact that we're spending $3.7 trillion and collecting $2.1 trillion. All of us are shocked by that, and we've got to deal with it one way or the other. So I welcome him. I welcome his wife, a distinguished educator, to the Senate family. I know that she's here today, and we welcome her and look forward to learning from her as well. And I join Governor Rockefeller in saying it was a great speech. I mean, your maiden speech is always your best speech. I remember walking with the University of Tennessee basketball coach in Knoxville in the Dogwood Parade or in some parade before the season started. He was very popular before the season began. And senators who make maiden speeches always have their best speeches then, and basketball coaches are always most popular at the beginning of the year. But I look forward to working with Governor Senator Manchin. He'll make a tremendous contribution to the United States Senate. I'm glad I was here to hear his outstanding address, and I thank the Senator from New York for his courtesy in letting me make my remarks.
Madam President.
Senator from New York.
Thank you, Madam President. I, too, want to join in the accolades for our Senator from West Virginia, Senator Manchin. He is just one fine guy. I got to know him when he was governor and then campaigning, and he is doing a wonderful job here already. To have passion about where you come from is a noble thing. I think the great poets from Greek times on have written that. And nobody has more passion about where he comes from and his roots than Senator Manchin, than Joe Manchin. And you can see it and feel it in everything he does, as we could in this speech today. And so I, too, want to join in thanking him for coming here, America needs his perspective and his wisdom, and I know he will make a great senator, and we're already great friends, and so I thank him here. I would also like to compliment my colleague, the senior senator from West Virginia as well, Senator Rockefeller, for his kind remarks. He's a great leader. Joe and I have talked about how you can't go wrong watching and imitating and emulating Senator Rockefeller. And so with the two of them, I believe West Virginia might have the tallest delegation in the Senate, but not just tall in inches, but in stature, ability to get things done, and passion for the state they represent. So it's my honor to be here as well and to congratulate Joe on a very fine introductory speech.
Senator from North Dakota.
Thank you, Madam President. I also rise today to congratulate the senator from West Virginia on his speech, welcome him to the Senate, express my pleasure in working together. I want to echo the comments of Senator Lamar Alexander, the good senator from Tennessee as well. Being a former governor, I actually got to know Joe Manchin in his days as governor, worked together as governor. Certainly now look forward to working with him as senator. Our states share many interests. One of those interests is coal. And I want to express my intent today to join as a co-sponsor on legislation regarding some EPA regulation that Senator Manchin is putting forward. And that's a good example where we can work together to create some jobs and some opportunity, and I certainly look forward to doing that. So again, I want to congratulate the good senator on his speech today. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.
Madam President,
Senator from West Virginia.
are we back on the regular order?
Morning business is closed. S-223 is the pending measure.
I thank.
Senator from Kentucky.
I ask unanimous consent to set aside the pending amendments and call up Amendment 21.
Is there objection? Without objection, the clerk will report the amendment.
I ask unanimous consent that the reading
Senator from Kentucky, Mr. Paul, proposes an amendment number 21 at the end of Title I.
I ask unanimous consent that the reading of the amendment be waived.
Without objection.
Madam President, the amendment that I've presented to the floor here for the FAA bill is an amendment that I think is a first step towards looking at budgetary restraint. The President, in his State of the Union, talked about freezing spending at 2010 levels. If we were to do that at the inflated levels of 2010, we would add $3.8 trillion to the debt over the next 5 years. It does nothing to the looming debt crisis to leave things at 2010 levels, because these were levels where we had already increased spending by over 20%. What I'm asking is a very modest proposal, and that's that all spending go back to the 2008 levels. This is not a significant cut. We've increased things dramatically in the recent years. FAA has been increased in funding, has been increased by 50% over the last 8 years. We can fund the upgrading of NextGen and various things by looking for cost savings within the bill. These are things we must do. The American people are demanding cost savings. The American people don't understand why we must pay inflated rates for our wages for the workers on federal projects. They don't understand why Davis-Bacon wages, which were often 30% higher than the wages paid on other projects, private projects, must be paid. People are familiar with this even in their home states when you talk about the building of schools, how schools cost 20 and 30% more because of having to have inflated wages and extra regulations, extra paperwork that all the Davis-Bacon laws require. So what we're looking for is cost savings everywhere, in this bill, in every bill that comes forward. As long as I'm able to and as long as I'm allowed, we will ask for spending reductions. Many people in this city are for a balanced budget. They say we're for a balanced budget amendment. But how can you be for a balanced budget amendment if you're not willing to cut spending? This is a very small, almost token cut in spending, but you have to do it everywhere. When people ask, how will you balance the budget, you have to say, I will cut spending. This is a very small first step to take the spending for this particular department to 2008 levels. I think it's a step that's long overdue. It's a chance for members who say they are for a balanced budget to put their vote where their mouth is. Let's vote to cut spending. Let's vote to cut spending on this bill now. Thank you very much for your indulgence, and I yield back the remainder of my time.
Madam President. Senator from Texas.
I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
The Chamber continuing debate today on a bill to reauthorize Federal Aviation Administration programs for another 2 years, making some changes, including moving from radar technology at airports to a satellite-based system. On the other side of the Capitol, House Republicans said today that they would cut spending for domestic federal agencies by 20%. Budget Chairman Paul Ryan released numbers for fiscal 2011 that would cap spending at $1.55 trillion and cut $32 billion from current government spending levels. Congressional Quarterly writing that the eagerly awaited numbers are sure to touch off a battle between House Republicans and Democrats in both chambers over how quickly and how much to cut spending. To recap some of what happened in the Senate today, senators offering amendments to the FAA bill, also talking about President Reagan on the centennial of his birth, and West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin delivered his first speech, his maiden speech on the Senate floor. A story we're covering at the State Department briefing today. Spokesman P.J. Crowley said that the U.S. believes the Egyptian government's democratic efforts have been insufficient, that Egyptian Vice President Omar Suleiman's meetings with opposition figures have not been broad enough or credible enough. We covered that briefing at C-SPAN today. If you'd like to see it, you can go to cspan.org, or it'll be on C-SPAN tonight just before 8:30 Eastern. We can see several senators on the floor. Senators Rockefeller and Hutchison were waiting for a senator to speak. The pending business is the Federal Aviation Administration Programs Bill. The senators offering amendments to the legislation today. An update on what's happening in Egypt from the Associated Press. Foreign journalists were beaten with sticks and fists by pro-government mobs today, and dozens were detained by security forces. Secretary of State Clinton has issued a sharp criticism of attacks on journalists and peaceful demonstrators. Without directly blaming President Hosni Mubarak's regime, she said Egypt's government and army must provide protection and hold accountable those responsible for the attacks.
Mr. President.
Senator from West Virginia.